Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Visual, a podcast where I interview all those people responsible for creating all the videos and images you see out in your world every single day. I am your host, lifestyle advertising photographer Mark Hansen, and today my guest is Greg Gorman. He is the senior managing photo art director at LL Bean. And in this great conversation, we talk about everything from his wonderful dog, who you can see on his Instagram, to how he got started in this whole thing, how he ended up going from Armani Exchange to working at LL Bean, how he manifested working for Donna Karan and working with Bruce Weber before any of that ever happened. We talk about what it's like on photo shoots with him and how he works that thing. We talk about the importance of personality and how that really helps in keeping you working in this industry. And all kinds of other stuff. A really cool story about some horses on a shoot, having to go to the back end of an RV on a shoot to get it out of the mud, all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned, check it out. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. Otherwise I'll forget later.
Yeah, this is my first one ever, so I'm off the cuff on whatever you want to ask.
Well, all right.
Or hopefully I'll do good.
Hey, I get the feeling you're going to do a fine job already. I can tell.
I'm very on. Well, I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of maybe too many Brené Brown podcasts, and how to be honest. I was like, maybe I need to pull that back for a second. But generally, I'm a very off-the-cuff sort of happy-go-lucky.
Well, that's good. I like that. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Hey, so I know you have a lab, right? Black lab?
I
your dog?
Is
that a lab or is it a?
He is a lab Great Pyrenees Chow.
Oh, wow.
She's got the purple tongue and the curly tail, so I say she's got the front and back end of a Chow. The face of a lab and the body and thickness of a Great Pyrenees.
She's a good-looking dog.
She is. I mean, yeah, too much that I'm walking down the street. I'm like, I'm here, people. What about me? Y'all calling how beautiful she is. Think about her dad.
That's the worst one. There's a model. Oh, there's this guy I know. He's so good-looking. And he showed up on set one day with a puppy. And I just looked at him and was like, dude, what the hell? You're already good looking. You really got to bring the puppy into the mix and give nobody else a chance, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
now I'm married, so I don't really care. But I was thinking if I was, single again, I'd be like, all right, you're an ass. Now I have at least a little bit of a chance here.
Just a tiny.
But see, that's a good thing, man. You got the puppy.
Yeah, that's like what was it? Dumber and Dumber. So yes. One in a million. So you never got a chance. I was like, that's a nice possibility. Yeah, it is really amazing. I never thought with her because we got her just from my ex-boyfriend, my ex-partner. We got her from a friend, and I guess it was a white Pyrenees and the lab who had a baby, and then I don't know what they were going to get. But even her fur coat is a mix. So it's like 3/4 length, and everybody is like, "Oh my God, her coat is so silky." I was like, "Yeah, the dad in me is like, okay, this is the food you're going to be on. This is what you're going to eat. You're going to get bad."
Yeah, that's good.
And then she matches my apartment decor, which is
well, that is true. That's extremely important, and I see that.
She fits right in.
Yeah, which is very important. Yeah, that's great.
You gotta make sure.
Does she shed a lot?
Not as much. She's been a little, and that's the problem. I mean, not more than when I had the cat. Like I've had cats for years, and then I was like, finally got the dog. I mean, traveling so much, I've always wanted a dog, but traveling just is really hard. But like with anything, well, you get a dog hoping that it'll fix the relationship, and then or in the new apartment, and then you realize, well, wait a minute, the dog and the apartment didn't fix that. So Hell,
my wife threatened to leave when we got ours. We have a lab, And my daughter had been begging. We had a Jack Russell, and the Jack Russell died. And my daughter had been begging for a lab. She wanted to make it a therapy dog. Please let me get a lab. I want a therapy dog. She begged for 2 years. Finally, my wife gave in. I was like, okay, you can have the dog. 3 months into it, she's like, I'm going to go live at my dad's house because I can't take this anymore. Luckily, she didn't go because every time she would work out and the dog was right there, it's like biting her while she's trying to work out and just go.
They are life changing though. So she'll be 4 this year, so going 4 years with her, and it's like a lot of work in the beginning, but now she's in the so I say she's in the past her teenage years, so she's starting to show the attitude. But and especially during times like this, and especially self-quarantining alone and being an extroverted creative person, she is hearing it all. She is getting an earful every night. But also, I mean, having that kind of where I walk into the door after, or some of the conversations we're having in the industry and with people, all I need to do is look at her and it's like, there's a calmness about it. So
does she follow you around?
No, she just likes where I'm sitting now. This is my new home office, because I refused to build an office within my home office because my apartment was never set out to be
right. Exactly.
My work is supposed to be at work. So, but it's strategically placed where every place I look, whether she's in one of her 3 dog beds or the chair, she just looks at me and just is like, sad eyes, and I was like, how am I supposed to get anything done? So I took her to daycare today, just knowing that, all right, I have to do this today. Sometimes she'll bark at the dogs, even though we're on the second floor. She can literally sense them from the second floor.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and mine does the same thing. She sits in my office, and I can see out to the neighborhood. And I'll see a dog walking, but we have a hedge halfway in front of the window. So I don't know how the hell she can see through the hedge, but she will just start barking. Like like you said, she just senses that there's something there. There's another dog there.
Really their sense of smell. I was like, is it really going through the doors? I mean, in the windows? I was like, how do you know that? So anyways, so a wonderful addition, and I would be lost without having her, especially being alone during all this.
What's her name?
Baxter. I like to. Let me turn that off because we definitely don't want people chiming in all the time. Baxter, but at daycare, because most dogs are named male Baxter. She was the title of Lady Baxter.
Lady Baxter. Okay.
So it's back. So and she fits all of it. Lady Baxter is definitely. She has all the traits of a very regal and a bark that will scare the hell out of you.
Yeah.
Very protective, will never bite anybody, but fiercely protective of me. Yeah. And I'll be like, I'm okay. It's good for me. I can stand on my own, but thank you.
That's the way my dog is. She barks. Like if she sees another dog, usually she's really good about staying in the yard, but occasionally she will just lose it for whatever reason. If the dog's looking at her too hard or starting to come at her, she will start barking and she will run full on towards those people and that dog like she is going to eat them alive. And then when she gets there, all she wants is just to be petted. She's not going to bite, but it scares the hell out of everybody that she's running towards.
Yeah, and now with the face mask, it's like another added level of, okay, now the dog is like, I don't know who you are, and you're freaking me out. And so I try to wear my mask wherever I can so that she gets used to all that too and understands what's going on. So.
God, I wish everybody would just start wearing their mask, man. If everybody would just wear it, we could all be back to work. Back to normal sooner.
As much as people complained about our governor here when Janet just came in, we're one of the few, I don't look like 2 states that actually is in the green and doing the right thing. And she has implemented the mandatory executive order, even though people don't follow it. But she just took it up a notch 2 weeks ago. There's an online form you can actually fill out now to report non-compliance.
Oh, wow.
And I'll call people out because it's not even for me. It's like, it's empathy and compassion for humanity.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, and it baffles me and how people don't see that and making it something so much. I'm just like, but I know why, because we have a leader who is not leading by example. So it is so interesting because as I watch all this unfold, so much can be taken and learned about how to lead as a person within the creative community and just
Yeah.
leading in
Oh,
general and what it
absolutely.
means
I
to be a
agree.
leadership.
They said
So
that, the president saying anything affects so many people. So they, they said that Trump saying the thing about disinfectant, putting in it, disinfectant kills it in a minute, and people were like drinking Clorox or whatever. To say the same thing happened with Clinton when Clinton said that oral sex was not sex. All these kids who wanted to stay virgins started having all the, and there's like STDs went like through the roof between
yeah.
this certain like age range between like 15 and 20 or whatever it was, because the president said it's not sex. Oh my
There's
God.
so many directions to go with that. Somebody, oh my God, it was the best. Somebody posted this, and just on that, it's the funniest one that I've read so far. And it shows a picture of him. Wait, yeah, I'll find it here. It shows a picture of the president. It says you start getting older, you're like, oh God, technology. It's like Instagram. Some days I get it. Some days I was like, I just don't. All right, where is it? All right, it's a post of the president in the mask, and it said, "At this point, this is just like a dude putting on the condom after he finished."
Saw that. I saw that.
Right now, it's just like, oh my God, spot on.
Yeah, I
Couldn't
saw
have
that. I was
said
like,
that
wow,
better.
that was
don't
amazing.
even have to say anything more. That pretty much is exactly what it is.
Yeah. I was
So.
telling somebody today, it's like, if people would, like, whether you want to wear it or not, whether you think it's against your rights or whatever, just wear. If you want me to be able to work again, please God, just wear the stupid
Yeah,
mask, because then we
yeah.
can all get back to maybe some kind of normal in the next couple of months. Would be beautiful if everybody would just do it. But
yeah, tell me about it. I'm sure we'll talk about that. It's insane.
yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what. Tell me how you got started in all this. How'd you end up at LL Bean? Were you this? Did this
Yeah.
start as a kid, kind of a thing? Were you like when you were younger? Were you
If
like
you
all
want
into
me to,
photography or?
so I'll go back to the timeline because I always
Yeah.
like to look back, and there is it's a very interesting progression of what happened. So I can go all the way back to elementary school where I was accelerating as an artist. So I knew art was always in inside me, but also I was also a classical pianist, and I also played the flute. So three of those things aren't also what growing up in a small town in upstate New York. I was also bullied and ridiculed and
Right.
for so many things, like, and not even knowing what gay meant back then. So I had so much going on, but art was always sort of this outlet for me. And all the teachers I worked with in the art, I gravitated towards it. And so I realized that I was taking piano, I was in band, and I wanted to do art. And I had this moment I remember I was in the Peach Bowl in Georgia, twirling the flute in band, being like, what the hell am I doing? Because playing the flute was probably the hardest thing because it went against everything a boy or a guy would do,
Right.
which got me the most ridiculed. And I just had enough of it, to the point where it's like, Mom, I don't want to do band anymore. This is just too much for me. Let me focus on art. Let me focus on just being an artist and working through that. So what I did is I then went to Skidmore. I did a summer course at Skidmore my junior year of high school, which just opened the world to me of art on a college campus versus small town boy in upstate New York.
Yeah.
You know, just the exposure I got from that. And so from there, I realized, wow, I want to be an artist. I want to explore this. So I started putting, more time into art, but realizing even back then, if I look back, wow, I didn't have the resources or the stuff to make that kind of portfolio that other people were applying to, like all these art schools and getting scholarships. So I applied to Skidmore, I applied to RISD and a few other safety. I got into all the schools, which I was like,
Oh, that's great. Wow.
but RISD wouldn't give me any money. And I knew it was because my portfolio wasn't strong enough. It was good, but it wasn't strong enough to give the money that I needed. My brother was at Union College, so it wasn't like my parents had disposable income to just pay the full tuition. It wasn't going to happen. So heartbroken, still playing piano. I got a scholarship at Skidmore, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Skidmore. I spent 2 intense years I took 1 year of piano and realized, okay, I cannot do both. I cannot be a classical pianist and an artist at the same time. It's just, I had to choose. And I knew that art was going to be the choice. Music could always be. And I think that's why music is such a big part of my life. It's still there. It's just that I had to really focus on one career.
Do you still play piano now? Do you have a piano in your apartment?
That's a whole other story. I don't have one in my apartment now, but my mom had got me one, and I just don't have space for it. And I really want a baby grand, but I'm actually thinking about donating it now. Like the electric piano, I want to donate it actually to somebody in need or community, so that it actually, somebody who didn't have the opportunities, like I have the opportunities. It's also just been so self-reflecting. I was like, it's just sitting in my storage. So I've already reached out. How can I take that piano and give that as a gift so somebody can learn from that? So that's the whole piano story.
That's
but
nice.
I will play, I'll sit down. So I took 2 years at Skidmore, and I worked my ass off. I took all the painting classes. I took all the drawing. I created an amazing foundation. Photography I wasn't even thinking of photography at all. Really just focusing on the foundation of what it means to be an artist and to hone the skills and kind of explore. And through that, I realized, I love graphic design, even though I was at the top of the game with painting. I was a figurative painter, and I had everything going for me to be this figurative painter.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, but what is this, 91? I was like, back then, to go to art school and be like, I'm going to be a painter, it just gave me these pictures of like scraping by in New York City, of trying to survive. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I know that it's competitive and what else. So I was so focused. I was like, I want to be design, because then I can incorporate all these wonderful things from fine art. I was doing lithography. So that's where I think my first understanding of photos, and I was taking photos and putting them on limestones and etching away. So I really started to build this base of how photography and fine arts and all can come together. But the one problem at Skidmore was there was only one graphic design teacher. And I knew that that would not be the right way to go into the industry with only one direction from a professor. So I reapplied to RISD after 2 years. I got back in and was given a huge scholarship that paid for the entire education. So it paid off those 2 years. So, but I had to start as a sophomore, because all their classes started as you picked your major as a sophomore. So I went in, and most RISD people had only 1 year of foundation. So I started out my RISD with 2 years of foundation, and ended up kicking off into the graphic design where I was doing, because I had done all my liberals and everything, I could solely focus on art, design, photography. I also touched upon, I really wanted, at one point, I wanted to be a fashion designer until I took a pattern making class. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I was like, how are you guys doing this? What am I not getting? And my designs just came out like crap. And I was just like, all right. You know what? I love photography of fashion. let me work. Let me not try to create the clothing, but now let me work on the actual photography part of it. So I had been doing 4 studios a semester, sometimes 3, but mostly 4, which was unheard of also, because typically it's like 2 studios and they were 5 hours. So there was this, I was insane. And I ended up starting to work at the Gap. So all the things started to come together. My love for fashion, my love for design, my love for photography, my love for clothing, and all was really just coming to the point where my senior thesis at RISD was about a men's fashion collaboration that would come out every 3 months that would highlight men's fashion like it's never been highlighted before. Like you would receive a poster, or you would receive these pictures that were actually printed on the fabrics of the actual suiting. And it was like, all right, call on Giorgio Armani, call on Dolce & Gabbana, call on Ralph. What kind of piece do you want to submit to this quarterly that's going to get sent out to all these men? And I remember that when I presented it, ooh, boy, did I take a hit. They could not. Really? But I knew back then that RISD is a very theoretical school, and I appreciated that, and I understood that, and that's the basis for my thinking. It's also my basis for my work ethic, and RISD really, really puts that into you. I was like, and people who come out of RISD, they're like work, and but I was at a student fashion show there. I think it was like my junior year, and the judges were there, and I went to go watch, and they were sending the clothing out, and people were like, wow. And somebody opened up one of the dresses, was like all orange, and I was like, yeah. And then then the judge was like, okay, well, how are you going to sell this to a mass audience? And I remember that moment being like,
there you go.
That's the key of what's missing here for me. Is this is all great. I'm at art school. I'm theoretical. I'm doing all these projects. How am I going to sell myself when I get out? And what does that look like for me to work within this industry? Right. And so I created a very commercial final piece of work for my senior thesis versus something very theoretical that some other people were doing. And I think it missed the mark, or there just was a disconnect, but I knew what I was doing. And so because of that, because of RISD, and I graduated at the top of the class with like a 3.7. So I was like at the top of my class, everything was great. And those opportunities that you hope for, or when you don't also come from a lot of money, or you're just getting by, and that my first job offer, I met with, my first interview I got at, I think it was Rolling Stone or something, because they thought I was Greg Gorman, the photographer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I found it very funny. I was like, nope, Greg Gorman, the designer from RISD? How about that?
Close enough.
And I was like, I would still get phone calls later on in my career in New York inviting me to these parties for Greg Gorman. And it's just been funny. And it's so funny because one of the photographers I worked with, Noe DeWitt, it's his godfather. So it all came full circle. It's like, it's really funny how the universe works. So the first job offer, I actually interviewed with, I think his name, whoever the family that owned J. Crew. I actually met the father.
Oh, wow.
And I presented my portfolio, and I was offered a job at J. Crew right out of college, but it was just like, here's $25,000 to live in New York. I was like, how does one,
Yeah.
I thank you, but there's absolutely no way. And so I stuck around and I commuted to Boston working at an agency. I got to know some people just riding on the subway that then got me into educational publishing. And I started educational publishing, and I was responsible for working on photo shoots that worked on these publishing books. So that was my first foray into art directing photography.
Okay.
But I was like, I don't want to do this. So what am I going to do? So I literally spent 2 years there at the same time creating a fashion portfolio. And I was like, I'm going to work for Donna Karan. I'm going to work and shoot with Bruce Weber. I'm going to move to New York. So after 2 years and working, having a stew with my friend, I was like, I just got to bite the bullet. And I said, I can't do this any longer. I said, I'm moving. I had $1,000 in my pocket. I moved to New York with no job. I had an apartment. I found some friends, used the RISD connections, and started at Martha Stewart, and realized that, okay, great. The RISD connections are great. A lot of RISD people. But after 2 weeks, I was like, I don't want to be. Oh, and at the same time, this was interesting. Just before I left for New York, of course, I got in with Toth. And I had that one opportunity. We were pitching Fila and we were pitching Nautica. And I was like, okay, and I truly believe this is one of the things I still stand by when it comes to presenting or anything. You've got one opportunity to make your best first impression. Yes. And whatever it takes, you do it. Because if you don't do it right the first time, you just don't get that second chance usually. So when I was
it takes forever to fix that.
It does.
If you can fix it.
I just gave it my all. I gave it my all to show what I was capable of at Toth, showing both for the Fila and then for the Nautica. And unfortunately, I had already planned to leave just when they got the Nautica account. And they got the Nautica account after I had already moved to New York. I had worked at Martha Stewart. I said, I don't want it to be picking colors out on your calendar. A friend of a friend got me into Donna Karan. And this is also about building connections within the community and how important those connections are for future jobs and everything. So I was working at Donna Karan, and then I got the call that they got the Nautica. And so then I transferred. Toth opened the doors down at their Soho. So I started working on the Nautica. And then from Nautica, the first photo shoot I did was with Noe DeWitt, and we did the Nautica campaign. It was like two 25-year-olds kind of going at it, trying to do it, which was amazing. And in New York, you're young. I definitely made some mistakes. I think, let New York sometimes take over what I should have been. I mean, you're young. You do things. But I always maintained the friendship. So the way it went from there is that from Nautica, with working with Noe, I then went to Carlson and Partners and worked. So first of all, I worked with Donna Karan. I got that off check.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you know that was a possibility before you went to New York?
No,
or was that just
absolutely not.
You just wanted it and it made it happen?
And I didn't even create a vision board. It just happened. It was all in my head.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So it was very like how that happened. But then the next one is working with Noe. He introduced me to Carlson and Partners, and Carlson Partners oversaw all the Ralph Lauren. So I ended up shooting chaps with Bruce Weber. So,
my God.
And then when Carlson Partners, I think then it went in-house but I got to know really with one of the producers there who picked all the photographer, helped bring all the photographers in. She got me into Armani Exchange. So then I worked at Armani Exchange, and
so you're working in-house at Armani?
yeah, we started our small in-house, and then I think I was there for like 3 years, and then from there, oh my God, so much happened in New York. You know, between 9/11, between the Great Blackout, that the whole city shut down, and everything else. I just think I got to a point where it was time for me to leave. It's an interesting city. I love New York. I was there at a wonderful time. I think I wish I was older when I went. I think as you get older, you understand so much more. And there's so many more things I would do differently now that if I went back, but you know, you learn from those. And so when the Ella Bean happened, it was like, all right.
Did that just pop into your lap kind of a thing? Or was it?
Yeah, somebody found me. They a headhunter. I was like, okay.
All right.
So I was like, sure. This seems, yeah, why not? I was working at Johnson and Johnson, helping out with a friend working in a vino, and I was just like, sure, okay. And then 13 years later, here I am. I just celebrated 13 years last year, and so it's such an it's like that's my career.
I'm still tripping on the Donna Karen Bruce Weber thing. That you like, that's what I want, and it just happened.
Sometimes I think and I put a lot of time, like, then while I was so I don't remember if I had said this, but when I was working the 2 years at the educational company, I created an entire portfolio of all fashion. So I created my own project so that when I did go to New York, I had this portfolio of fashion design work that I did to say, look what I can do also on top of working with Toth. And that helped a lot too. So from every part of that, so everything I was a design. So I started with design, photography was coming in. Photography played a huge part at Toth and played a huge part in everything else as an art director at all these fashion advertising. And then when I got to Ella Bean, I strictly focus on photography now. I don't actually, as you know, I don't shoot the photography. I like, you know, as a photo art director, you're pretty much the director of everything, and you've worked with them. You know, my role is to get the right teams together that are cohesive, that work well together to help bring the image alive, and also work with the photographer hand in hand so that you know, I never like to look over the shoulder. It's that trust I build with the photographers.
That's nice to have.
Again, another thing that I truly, truly believe is trusting those you hire, because I am not a director who will be on top of somebody telling them what to do. I do not like to micromanage. I don't like to be micromanaged. I understand what it means to be creative and to be able to be open and to have those abilities. And you know what? If it takes you to go from A to C to get to B, great. That's part of the process. So, you know, there's a whole discussion in that about creative processes and how I've been feeling over probably like the last 5-6 years on how Amazon has sort of ruined metrics and how many shots are you getting done a day and what are you doing and why haven't you reached this number? And I was like, wait a minute.
I know some people who have worked at Amazon. One of the guys I know, he actually had hired me to shoot a bunch of stuff for Lowe's, and then he left Lowe's and went to Amazon. Mm-hmm. And he lasted maybe 2 years, and the last year and a half was because he had a kid who really needed the insurance. Yeah. So like he said, he physically felt his body change as he walked into the studio because he was in charge of everything. So he said he spent most of his time in conference calls, you know, so he wasn't overseeing photography. And then somebody else I know worked there said they literally, her job was to count the steps in ecom that the photographer took from the computer to the tripod, and how many steps the model took from the set to change, and to see if they could even reduce that just by one step. Yeah, it's ridiculous what they're doing over there.
Yeah. And yeah. So I get, like, there's two sides to it. I get metrics. I understand. I do. But they're also, it's a two-way street, where there has to be the respect and understanding for the creative process, just as I have to respect what these metrics they're saying, and,
Right.
and where can you meet, and where do you allow the creativity process, to let the creative process, because sometimes it can be done in a minute, sometimes it's a day, sometimes who knows. And then you get out on location and everything you thought you were going to have, it rained. So then what do you do?
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, I got 2 shots in today. So,
Yeah.
but that's where, back to creating teams that I fully trust. I trust them. I trust the photographer. That's their job. I trust my hair and makeup. I trust my stylist. I trust my prop people. I trust everybody. Mine isn't to control everybody. It's to trust all that it's coming together. And of course, my responsibility is to make sure that it is on brand and all
Right.
of that. But the more you try to control it, then you're not getting the authentic photography that you really need. You're just getting people dialing it in. And you want to create an environment that is so inviting and so warm. And I do know that from speaking to people in the industry, and a lot of the models and a lot of people work, I know that people love coming on our shoots because they know what they're coming into, and they know the respect we have and the family atmosphere we create. And that's the other thing, is like, when people come in, is like, especially any new person or model, I want it to feel like it's a homecoming. Like, we know you, but we haven't seen you forever. So come on board and let your guard down and laugh and cry if you want, and do whatever you need to do, because the more real and more human you are, and the more you are who your true self is, that's going to resonate on film for what we do. And it's just going to make your working environment, everybody's working environment, that much better. Not to say that there are challenges on sets, as always, but I think
Always. Yeah.
more, and you may know this, it's not even as much the people as it is just environment and weather that can easily, especially the role of a director, is like, you cannot let that derail. You cannot. I remember I had a shoot where it was a fall shoot, and I had all these great ideas. It was up in Lake Placid. I was like, oh my God, the rolling hills. This is like in May. And I was like, it's the budding is coming up, so it looks fall and it's going to be beautiful. Wake up, it snowed. So you have 2 choices when you get out of that. When you get out, you're like, either you can let this completely derail your day, or be like, okay,
Yeah.
figure it out. We're
Figure it
okay.
out.
We're not doing brain surgery. We're going to be okay. And,
Yeah. I had a Mother's Day campaign one time for a company, and we were shooting mid-March, I think. And they wanted me to shoot up in the mountains where the trees are all bare and everything, and the grass is dead, and they want it to be, ready for Mother's Day. So basically, I laid in a cow field in cow patties all day long, shooting more up as much as possible, because that was the only way to kind of get rid of the trees, because retouching would have been more than they wanted to pay. So, we did that, and then we found a lake. And I was like, well, here's a lake, and all the trees are like evergreens around this lake. So we can go down to the lake and shoot with, on the pier and all that. And they're like, okay, that worked. So luckily it all worked out. But yeah, it was one of those where you show up on set and you look around and you go, yeah, this isn't going to work for a Mother's Day campaign.
No.
But you figure it out, like you said.
Yeah. And also, I hate waking up and not having a cloud in the sky. It's like, oh, it's going to be one of those
Yeah.
days. It's like, damn it. And everybody else who's not in photography is like, wow, what a great day. I was like,
Oh yeah, it's a
no.
great day to shoot.
Especially in the middle of June or July when the sun is so high and hot. You're like, this is awful. So I've definitely, as over these last 13 years, I I want to actually just took a camera out like last week. I dabble on my phone. I still try, and you've seen my Instagram
Your
account.
Instagram is great, by the way. Your
I
Instagram shots are amazing. I look at those and like, damn, man, those some good shots.
That's all. That honestly is my entire background coming into the photo. Now, I am not by any means a technical photographer. I know that. And I've said too, if I'm going to go, if I want to do photography, I have too much respect for the craft that I would need to go back to school or take some courses so that I can learn the technical aspect. Not
Or you can
just
do like Jill Bensmore and just hire all of like Herb Ritz's assistants.
and I don't like, and that's the thing is like,
And I don't have a problem with that.
I was like, for me, I was like, I want to know how to do this. So, I will teach myself, but right now, the way I operate on my Instagram is I look at whatever shot I take. And I wish I could show some of the before and after because it'd be like, how did you get that out of there? And I will walk around my neighborhood, find something, and it's such the technical composition I have my eye to that. And then if you've noticed, it depends on what mood I'm in. I use about maybe up to 5 different programs, and I just layer and layer and move and layer. That photo to me is like my canvas, my blank canvas of painting. And I use that as my way to express the art, knowing that just one way of using photography. The other way is just getting it right out of the camera perfect. I get that. I just don't know how to do that 100% for me to feel like, oh, so maybe it's a cheating way, but I also feel like, well, no, it's my way of art.
Yeah.
It's expressing how I see that image in a different way, that it just because it's a photo doesn't mean it has to be like that. So I do want to learn that part, but what I do know, and I know that with working with some photographers, the best thing that I can do as a director is I understand lighting. I understand how locations work. There have been
By the way, it's really nice to work with somebody like you who understands that stuff, because then you're not going to get somebody going, can we shoot here? And you go, yeah, no, that doesn't work.
I literally had one moment with this photographer where I was like, let me tell you, at this time, if the sun's here, blah, 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 you are going to be blown away. And she was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, that is wonderful to have that.
So and then the way I approach it is, instead of me telling you how to light, telling you, oh, you should do this, I just walk around and I'm like, oh, how about right here? Because I know that the light is there, this is a setting, and I know exactly. So instead of me telling you, well, this is how you should do that, I'm just handing you everything on a platter and being like, all right, go for it, make the magic and then show me what you see through that lens, because so many times I always get surprised that when I'm out there and I'll be like, oh yeah. I was like, why aren't you seeing what I'm seeing? Why aren't you capturing it? And I'm not saying that to them.
Right, yeah.
Because then when the film starts coming in, I was like, oh, God damn it. You saw something. You saw something better. And that's the beauty, and that's the whole thing about unless I'm inside your head looking through that lens, you're seeing something different. And that's that trust of, I need this, this is a top focus, that we have to make sure there's a transactional shot for this, but also feel free to make it more editorial. And then as they're doing that, because the photographer is so focused on capturing the frame,
Sorry about that.
no worries.
Right.
You know, I have to be on the side, and I've got the stylist making sure that the clothes right. Really, I'm looking back and being like, okay, here's my layers. Here's the model. Here's the scene. Here's the clothing. I also, my eyes go way to the back, so there may be something way in the back that is helping me balance what's way in the front. It's
It's
like,
good.
it's crazy the way, but that's just the way I think, and that's why when I look at any photograph, what I can see beyond just that simple photograph, and probably from the advertising, I would crop a photo maybe 50 different ways. So just through that training, all that has actually been helping through this pandemic when we had to cancel all the shoots and we had to go back into what we've shot last year and
Right.
reimagine and what can we do. And I was like, I got it, and then it's working. It's not sustainable by any means, you know, maybe one more season, but you know, not being able to create new assets, but going in and just a simple different crop or going back into the film a year later, knowing that, oh, I'm editing, maybe I missed something, you know.
Yeah.
And I find that, and maybe you might feel this too, and I find it, well, because of digital, everybody wants something so quickly. And I've sort of stopped from, no, if you want to tether. I don't need to look at the screen with the images coming on. That's not me being present.
Right.
That's just technology. I don't need to be present. Shoot off card because I think you're freer and you're being. I don't need to see that, but I feel a lot of the times we do these, you know, shoots or whatever, and then it's like, come on, get them done. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
wow, the editing process is one of the biggest processes and the most time consuming and the most important, yet sometimes given the littlest amount of time to get it done.
Right. I was talking to Nathan Monteith. He's a creative director in Chicago, and he was talking about they were doing a Fiat shoot commercial, and they were literally editing the commercial on set as they were shooting it. And he said he'd never done anything like that before in his life, but I see it more and more. You know, everybody's wanting to see what the final is going to look like at the, you know, at the digital station. They want you to give them like a hard drive before you ever leave the end of the set, so they can just take everything and go off. And it used to be, you know, I would leave set early, or when we finished shooting, instead of going out to eat with everybody, I'd run to the lab and go
Yeah.
drop all the film off and just go grab something to eat real quick and just sit there and wait for 2 hours until the film came back and look through it. But basically just for me, because I wanted to see it. And then the client
Yeah.
like, can you get us to the film in the next week? And you're like, yeah, fine, I can do that. Now it's like, hey, can we have a hard drive before we leave today? And you have 3 more days of shooting, but they want that hard drive for everything for the day shoot. So it's everything's completely changed.
Yeah, it's sad sometimes about that because I found that typically we'll take the hard drive, but I think this goes back to that whole trust building. So my photographer trusts that you know, we've got it, it's in there. It's hard, and sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, edit, show me what your favorite images are when you go back, but no rush, don't rush about it
Yeah.
because A, it's not due right now, and B, these assets can live in so many different channels. So I don't
I also
need your
think it's
cut.
different working with somebody like you because it's obvious that you know what you're doing. And
Yeah.
for me to give you a hard drive of raw images, I would not feel stressed out about it. I would not feel like, all right, I'm going to give you these images and they're not going to be the way that they need to be. Where I've had art directors before on set go, we need you to crop this in camera. And I'm like, all right, but I want to give you a little bit of room in case you need bleed or it runs into whatever you want to put a copy of. Well, no. We know where it's going to go. We just need you to crop it in camera because I just can't see it otherwise. And
Well,
that scares me.
yeah. On that note, this was one of those moments in my career that I was like, okay, when I was working with Bruce, he typically edits his film, right?
Yeah.
And so he edited the first shoot, sent the images to me, and I was like, okay. I actually took those and created a book for him. And
Really?
like back in the day, it was like pasting on all, but it was, it was
Yeah.
love, the lot of love put into it, and it just showed my understanding of, even when the edit he sent to me, what I creatively could do with it and how I understood what he was capturing and how I could bring it to life. That the next shoots, he's like, just sent me the film and I edited it myself. And I was like,
That's
okay.
trust right there. Yeah, that's huge amount of trust.
It was nice. And that's it. It's trust. And that is the key to a successful relationship with anybody you work with, is the trust, in allowing that trust to happen. Um, because I want the photographer to shine. I want my team to shine, and it's all about
Absolutely.
team. It's not about me. It totally isn't about me. I'm one component. I am nothing without the team. I am just, I oversee it, but I the team is there to create that vision together versus me having ownership. And I'm a big believer in the teamwork that it takes. And even on a shoot, that it doesn't even matter if you're the RV driver, your role is important to the success of
Right.
a shoot. If you're just steaming the clothes, your role. If we didn't have the steam clothes, then the photo wouldn't work. It's like everybody makes this a success. All I can do is lead it to that success, but without them,
Oh, I agree.
unless you're creating your own artwork, then you have full ownership. And then, but when it's something, for a company, it's a team. It's not just me.
Yeah, I think I learned that when I first started shooting. I had an agency owner tell me, I mean, I was just starting out, and they were looking at my book and like, your photography is good. I can tell that you can light and expose, whatever, but you need better models. You need better hair and makeup. You need better clothes. It's not just what you do on your end. And that was probably some of the best advice I've ever gotten. And at that point, I was like, you're right. It all comes down to every single person that you're working with. And my job in the end is to make everybody look good,
Yeah.
because that way, if everybody else looks good, then I'm going to look good as well. So I totally agree on the whole teamwork thing with you. I don't understand the guys who are just like, this is my shoot as the
Yeah.
photographer, and like, I'm going to do what I want. It's like, it's really everybody's.
And it's not even, it's like I'm supporting the business. So I have to make
Right.
sure that I come back and I'm supporting what my VPs want from me. For any job I've ever worked at, it's never been, school was where I could do what I wanted. If I want to get something, I do that on my own.
Right.
But and it's also just so interesting is like you realize why a lot of film people keep their same people, because that trust is so important. And sometimes when you hear people like, well, you need to mix it up. And I was like, do you? Do you
Right.
really? Why do you have to mix it up?
I think sometimes it just depends on what you're doing. So,
Yeah,
like, I
yeah,
was shooting years ago, I was shooting for Laura Ashley. And
yeah,
I swear to God, the biggest, Demarchier could have sent his book in, and they
yeah,
literally would have held it for a couple of days, never even looked at it, and sent it back because they were happy with me and what I was doing. And, but at some point, and for me, it's great. I love that. I'm totally happy with that all day long. But I think if the company starts going in a different direction, like they want to
yeah,
change, then yeah, okay, you can't keep shooting
yeah,
with the same people. And
yeah,
I understand that. And if I've
yeah,
been there forever and you want to change, I get it. I'm going to
yeah,
leave. And I know that every time, like I was shooting a lot for one company, and I was shooting everything. It was weird, even stuff I didn't want to shoot. They were asking me to shoot it.
yeah,
And then the creative director left, and creative director gave me a heads up. I was like, I'm out of here, right? As soon as you leave. Like, no, you'll be fine. Like, yeah, I know how this works. And it
yeah.
was, but I understood it. I saw it coming, and I get that you come in and a new person's going to do their thing, and they're going to do it differently. But yeah, to have that team that you trust, I think it's a huge
And
deal.
I think you bring up a good point. It's like there's a time and place for it, but I'm not a big fan of just mixing it up for the sake of mixing it up. That's not
Right.
when you should mix it up. If you're going in a different direction, well, then of course, because photographers have different styles. And then you start to look at your team. Okay, well, where do I mix it up? Do I just bring a new photographer in? Do I still maintain the styles to hair and makeup? Maybe that hair and makeup person, maybe they wanted some far edge makeup and that's not comfortable. So like for your reasons, sure, you mix it up there, but sometimes it's like, no. The only other reason why you would bring in other people that I think is like you increase your bench strength because God knows if you lose somebody for a job or something, you do kind of have to protect yourself. But I
Yeah,
also like my little family. I know what they're capable of, and I know that you don't have to do all the explaining, and you just kind of can get out there and move it along. So
absolutely. And I think it's good. Like I've always felt that even if I'm coming in, like say somebody hires me and I know it's a one-off kind of thing, it's a small job, and they're having me come in, that down the road it could be that the guy they use or the girl they use all the time isn't available on these days and they have to shoot, and then I get to come in and I get to shoot that. And it actually happened for me on a catalog that the guy who shot the catalog, they didn't like the cover. So they asked me to come in and he wasn't available to reshoot the cover. So they asked me to come in and shoot the cover. And I was like, absolutely. Went in, shot the cover, thought this is going to be it. I'm never, not going to do it again. That dude never got his job back. So I felt bad for him, but I felt really good about me after that
yeah,
thing. Yeah. So but yeah,
yeah,
it's one of those things where when you have that, the same thing with me. I have certain assistants that I just like. I have other ones that I go to when those aren't available. But yeah, I have that team of people that I like to work with.
yeah.
And
I
like
mean,
you said,
your Digitech is like your right hand.
yeah,
So you need that. Like I've seen it happen where if the Digitech hasn't worked with a photographer, it can create a little tension or create, they know you if you've worked with
right.
them. And they know exactly what moves you're supposed to make, and so it's so many of these little pieces that are so important for the success.
How do you, speaking of photographers and digitex, and first of all, hair and makeup and styling, is that something that you are in control of? Do you pick those people, or do you have the photographer suggest people, or do you just have your
No,
team?
um, we've found everybody. We go to New York once a year, and we meet with a lot of stylists, a lot of um, hair and makeup people. Our hair and makeup, they have to be a combo, so that's always a
Right.
hard challenge, just because from budgets and stuff. But I've worked with some of these people for many, many years now, and we introduce more people. We tend to try people out on AV shoots just because that's a great way to get them acclimated to the Beam brand.
Yeah.
But again, it's like those people that I just know it inside and out and have been with me. Like the last thing, if I know I'm on a big shoot, I want to worry about explaining hair or having somebody training and becoming. But we've introduced people slowly, and then from the AVs, they've come onto location because personality is a huge thing too. That person has to jive so well. I mean,
Oh yeah.
personality is so key on any position, and the respect. And we just, as a company and personally for me, I want just a group of people that are just happy and there's no attitude, there's no room for it at all. And so when you find these people, you just hold on to them and you're like, no, you can't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no.
When you guys
And
are shooting these bigger sets on location, do you have? I've heard that you guys have like 2, 3, 4 photographers running at a time or something like that. Is that true?
old days. No, that was the old days. No.
Okay.
So when I first started, there were 3 teams that went out for about almost 10 days. It was 2 on figure, and then it was 1 off figure. So we had 3 photographers going at the time. Slowly over the years and everything, it's down to 1 team, 1 photographer, that does it all. And
Yeah.
it's only myself and another girl who reports into me that is at LLB that oversees all the on figure. And then we have people who oversee the off figure down at our studio.
I think that's happened with a
But
lot of people because I did the same thing.
yeah,
I was on a shoot where it was like 6 days, 2 photographers on this big location, and then as the years gone by, it's gotten to the point where it's 1 photographer, and it's 3 or 4 days now as opposed to
Yeah.
5 or 6 days with 2
Yeah.
photographers. Yeah.
Yeah. It's changed, and the fact of that Tara and I are able to, the two of us being able to produce all this work, because we've got men's and women's, we've got active, we have home, we have kids, we have being for business, we have hunt and fish. I'm probably missing one or two, but that's a lot of different shoots happening.
Oh yeah.
So, and to oversee all that, and then on top of that, all the AV shoots, all the additional, and those are additional views, the web shots, where we do 4 times a year, where we've got anything kind of that product selling. So, and right now we're right in the midst of trying to figure out spring and summer. So that's it was hard not to be able to shoot for fall and winter, my 2 favorite shoots.
Yeah.
And we were heading to Oregon and Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which I've been going to.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, but we got through, and I mean, like you said, it's disappointing, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, and so we're still just kind of figuring out what it looks like. Have you shot yet with the whole?
I am on hold to shoot next week, for like 3 or 4 days.
Will
so
be
I'm
your
waiting
first
to
shoot?
see. Yeah. We've bid on a couple of jobs. So I've got the protocols down. I have a friend of mine who's an orthopedic surgeon, and he was telling me about this stuff called nosing. And I was like, what's that? He said, well, he does hip and knee replacements. And he said, every so many cases, or every percentage of cases, you knew you were going to get a staph infection. And he said he's traveled all over the world trying to figure out how to reduce the amount of staph infections they get on these surgeries. And he said, this nosing company, they did some kind of deal, and the DNA in the staph infection somehow matches the specific DNA that's in your nose most of the time. And he said he doesn't know if that's from like people doing like this and it hitting there, or if it's coming from inside the body or whatever. But he said he started using this nosing, and what it is you put it on a Q-tip and rub it inside your nose, just the very inside portion of your nose. Since they've started doing that, first of all, everybody in the surgical team does it. Then they do it to their patient. And he said, since they've started doing that, not one person has gotten a staph infection. And he told me, he was like, use this on your shoots. He said, you use this, wear a mask, and wash your hands. He said, you're going to be bulletproof from the shoot. So, I ordered some, gave it to my daughters, went to Charleston this past weekend. There was nobody in Charleston. But I had them do it when they went down there, and I mean, the place looked dead. And so they did it, and I've got it, so I'm going to use it on my shoot, and hopefully he's right. And it's, because he said so many people, constantly touch your face, even with your mask on. They may you may do like this or whatever, and get into your nose. He said, but that's the deal. He said he thinks that it's not FDA approved to fight coronavirus or kill it, but he's 99% sure that it does.
Yeah.
So I figured I'll try that out.
There you go.
And we'll go. And
you have to wear a shield, or are you just able to wear a mask?
Right now, it's just a mask. I don't have to wear a shield. So
I think that if you have to wear a shield, you might as well just be like done.
Yeah. And I have to fly, because I told him I'm flying at the end of the week, and I'm flying to Memphis. And I was like, dude, I got to get on a plane. Should I just drive? And he's like, no, just do this stuff. Wear your mask, wash your hands. You'll be okay. But I booked like the seat nearest the window, so I would stay away from people in the aisle. Hopefully there's nobody else going to be, in my aisle. But who knows? I heard Americans packing flights right now.
Is your wife okay with all this? Is she sort of like...
She's just like, go make some money, please, God.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's been rough. I haven't shot. I think the last time I shot was March 13th. And not last time I shot, but last time I got paid for shooting was the 13th. So it's been 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would have been, like I said, I would technically be on a shoot right now. And so I felt like being creative. It was just like, I never thought that our field, I was like, oh, we're fun. And who would have ever thought that our field would get hit as hard as it did? And I'm thankful that we're figuring ways. I feel for the artists and the Broadway people who really
absolutely
on. And it's just, and the people who can't work at all now versus, so it's like the people who can't work, that's first and foremost the empathy I have for them. I'm thankful we're figuring a way. So we stop bitching and moaning, be
Right.
thankful. Thankful we have something, because there's a possibility you could have nothing. So, like you said, wear the goddamn mask.
Yeah. Exactly.
Make
Yes.
the best of it.
Yep.
And treat everybody with kindness.
Yeah.
This is like, these are crazy times, and
It seems like it's such a simple thing to do. Those two things that
you would
just
think.
just do it already. My God. Do you get a ton of promos from photographers daily, kind of a thing?
Right now, no.
No, probably not now.
It's so.
You're not even getting emails now.
I
I
I
thought your
do
email would just be slam packed.
I do, but I've gotten things. It's so interesting. I wish I had the time to respond and talk to everybody and work with everybody. And I remember when I got out of school and I was like, why aren't they answering my letter? Why are they not? What did I do? Why don't they like me? And I was like, oh my God. It's like, it totally is not that at all.
Right.
It's just like, you don't have the time. And there are certain things that come in, I was like, it catches my eye, but I'm so like,
Yeah.
it's hard. And again, the kind of feelings I have for now and for freelancers. I mean, because even in New York, I was permalance. Like
Right.
And here is where I'm full time. I know what it feels like to be a freelancer. I personally chose not to be a freelancer anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Like, oh, geez, when's that bill coming in? Or when's this? And how did they get that? And am I going to get paid? Or, some of the companies, that I saw that knew they were going to file, hired people and then filed after and didn't pay the people that they just hired. I was like, how do you sleep at night?
I heard that happening to a photographer. He was hired for a shoot and he put like 35 grand out of pocket or something like that. And then they filed for bankruptcy right after the shoot. He still had to pay everybody, or at least
he knew it too. And those are the things I was just like, So it's so interesting. It's like, I understand. It's just that I personally don't have the time and to answer to everybody or have the amount. Yeah, I think being the generous person I am, I would love to work with everybody and give everybody a shot and try to do this. But I know the reality, and it's just like, unfortunately, there's a reality that settles in pretty hard and fast. And but I do like a good promo every now and then. Somebody sent me a promo. I have it still because I was like, damn, that's a nice promo. It was like a whole buck. And it was so interesting because one of the photographers I work with, she sent me a print of boxing. And this was like a whole book. I don't know how it was just like taped in images. Every image was taped in with masking tape and it was raw. And it was like, this is like a piece of art.
Oh,
wow. And then, I think that starts to catch your eye, but then you're like, okay, is that person right for the job?
Right.
But if it's just a mailer, it's almost sometimes it's unfortunate because they sort of get lost in a way. It's like almost like thinking about a portfolio or how do you put yourself out there? What's going to get somebody's attention? And then at the same time, even to get the attention, maybe that's not the right place or for the person. So, and it was. I remember when I took this job, I got an interview at Burton Snowboards too.
Really?
And not that I couldn't do the job, but after I left, I was like, that's not right for me.
Right.
I don't snowboard.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay
Right.
with that. It has no reflection about my ability to do the work. Just, yeah, no, I'm not a snowboarding bro to go down a mountain. Hey. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's with anything, and sometimes you never know. I mean, there's been jobs where I met the person who hires the photographers, and it's we just kept in touch randomly, and 5 years later, they
Yeah.
call me and go, "Hey, I have a shoot for you." Sometimes it's you leave and you think, "Well, that meeting sucked," and you get a call, a day or two later, going, "Hey, we got a shoot for
Yeah.
you if you were interested." And you're like, "Where the hell did that come from? I didn't think that
Yeah.
meeting went very well." And then there are others who are just like, "That was great," and then you never hear from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the thing I've gotten to the point where I know it now is that they're flipping through your book or they're going on your iPad and they go, "Thank you. This is nice work. Thank you. We'll let you know if we have anything here." All right. That was a waste of time for everybody on that one.
Well, yeah. And for me, it's like there's two things. It's funny because I'll go down to the book show and in New York and I
Yeah.
flip through. But also in my personal life, it's like I was like, I'd always be like, don't show me your vacation photos, all 150, because you're only gonna get mad at me because I swipe like this because it's the way I edit, and you're gonna think I'm not paying attention to you, and I'm not listening. But I see every single image because my eye is trained to be like, oh, you mean that one
Right.
from a minute ago that had this thing here, here, here? I am the worst. So I would be like, don't ever judge me by the way I'm looking because, I mean, the way I edit too is I do a really fast edit, I call it.
Yeah.
I edit as if I'm flipping through a magazine. And I edit to say, what? Did that catch my eye? And also my eyes, I swear, they go in circles. I'm like, I can view it, move it on. And when looking at it, you know when that image is the winner. You feel it,
Yeah.
you know it. But I've also there's that. So it just gets me, well, I have to fast edit or I'll never get done because I think one of the jobs I had 70,000 frames to get through. That is, yeah. I literally was like, oh, maybe I should do metrics on how long it takes me to get through one folder of 500. And it literally was like, so now because of that editing.
Maybe that's when film was better because you didn't have to go through 70,000 images when it was film.
Yeah. And you're like, click, click, click,
Yeah.
click. You're like, but I can give you metrics on how long that takes. It's going to take me a whole week. But I've also found how refreshing it's been to just do the shoot, take 2 or 3 days away, just step away from it, go into the edit room, turn the lights off, and look at it.
Yeah.
If I could, it's so important. It's like, I just used to be like, after a whole day of shooting, I have to edit. I was like, you're not going to get the best out of me. You're just not.
I usually do it now where I come back, don't even look at them that day. Maybe the next day I pull them up. I do a quick pass through, walk away, give it another couple of hours or a day, go back, look at them again. And then I'm looking at it going, why did I pick that one? Why did I not pick that one?
Yeah.
And then I go back through it again. And then I give it another half day, go over it again. So I'm probably, for my own personal stuff anyway, that I'm going to use for me, I'm probably running 4, 5, 6 edits. Just to get it down to this final, say, 10 that I want to narrow down to the 3 or 4 or whatever, 2 that I'm putting in my portfolio.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you have to.
And that's a lengthy process. That is the process. That is the magician behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Doing all the work. And I've had to do that. So if I've got 70,000 frames, at the end of the season, sometimes we put together, and that's just one shoot. We've got all these other shoots. We have to get it.
How many shoots do you do a year?
I think it's about roughly around 16 across all the shoots.
Right.
Men's, yeah. So I think, but
and right you ever now, see all of those?
I do in a way, but I have farmed out the kids, and I work with the freelance art director on that. And then the girl who reports into me, she oversees like home and all that. So I'm aware of them. I'm not as in deep as them as the men's
Right.
and women's. Anything that's like sort of men's and women's, that's what I've been doing for the last 13 years. So that has been more, and also Bean, what's been interesting with Bean, and you don't get this a lot of companies. I think about 2-3 years ago, we shifted our entire photo strategy to being more in the moment, real, authentic,
Right.
that. And you're trying to find the balance of how do you create that? How do you get a transactional shot? How do you create an editorial shot? How does this all live together? How does the men's and women's shoot work with the kids shoot that works with the other shoot? And so, as I say, planning and the planning part, decisive decision making are extremely critical and crucial to being able to execute these shoots so that everything works at the end. And so
Right.
even when picking photographers, we got to make that sure that style works with this style, works with that style. That's all the work that goes in. The photo shoot, I always say the photo shoot's the easy part. That's the fun part. And also, I'm a huge believer in the more prepared, more dialed in that we come, that anybody who comes in, I know that people are like, wow, you guys are so organized. And I say, well, that organization, imagine if you start your day disorganized, what that does to a team.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're organized and you come out, that allows the team the breathability to be creative, because I'd be like, that outfit, these are the 8 outfits. We walk around, we get it all, and then you just create. But that whole of, well, what are we shooting today? And where are we going to go? Oh, that's dangerous in a way. Then not that it doesn't have a place. So you have to kind of, even when planning these shoots, when they were 7-day shoots, you had to think about day 1 and day 7 at the same time. And then you had to think about, okay, we're shooting for 6 days, or even 6 days where you typically won't have a day off. You just keep going and going. Well, what is your team going to be like on day 6? I know what they're going to be like. We're going to be drained. What is your team like on day 1? Okay, well, day 1, your team, they're just getting the job. So you don't want to go out the gate with your biggest stuff. You don't want to be like, today we're going to do the cover that's going to tell you.
Right.
You kind of want to start out being like, and especially if there's new people in there, you start to get the wheels oiled, and you're like, okay, your day 1 usually goes well, but that's your day 2. Understand how you all work. Any new people, you don't put all your big shots on day 1. You kind of ease into it. Then you start to build up. By day 2, and then you're looking at, okay, well, if we're stationed here and we have to drive an hour in the morning the next day, what will that day look like? Well, now you've just eaten up 2 hours of your day driving. You know what it's like to drive for an hour and get out of a car. You're exhausted. How does your day fill into that? And then on your 3rd day, because you're probably going to be coming back late, you might want to find a location that's only 15 minutes away so that you give the people the extra time in the morning and go. And so by day 3 or 4 is when you start building it all up. And then I had this cadence where then I was like, okay, so you start with 2 models on day 1, you 2, 3, day 4, you've got the 4 models because everybody's at their most. Yes. And then you start to slow down again, because you just kind of have to, that's that understanding of not only is it, shooting and being creative, there are so many other aspects that you have to think that you may be getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning, but hair and makeup is getting up at 4:30. And then, great, hair and makeup's getting up at 4:30. Guess who's going to bed at around 10 p.m.? The Digitech. So, not everybody falls within that thing, except for the director, who sort of has to be like, and even then I'd be like, oh, hair and makeup's happening, I can sleep in a little. But you have to have that consideration. You have to have that understanding on everybody's parts fit into this.
I've always said it's kind of like, to me, I've always said it's almost like a band going on a tour. Like you don't really want to go see the first few shows because they're still, even though they've rehearsed, they're still working it out when they actually have to get there at a different place. Go catch them like middle of the road, 3/4 of the way in, and then you're probably gonna get your best show. Because at the end, they just want to get off and go back. And, they hate each other by that point anyway for the bands and move on. But yeah, so I've always said, just like you're saying, it's one of the same kind of thing. Don't ever shoot the most important stuff on day one or the last day. You got to tweak it in there somewhere in the middle.
And usually the last day is sort of like, just in case there's a weather day, because we don't have weather days either. You kind of have to never put all your eggs in one basket on your last day, because then you could really set yourself up for failure of being like, oh, well, I didn't get that shot.
Yeah, like that shoot I was telling you about before we started recording, we started shooting at, I think the call time to be on set was around 8. Our last shot was 9:45 at night because it rained so much during the day. So we would bring it out. I mean, we were trying to light the hell out of everything, and it was a lot of work, for that, all because it rained. And that was we had to get it in that day because we had a limited number of days to shoot and that we had the models available. So
that's the thing is like you said, you can have everything all set up. All it takes is one day of rain. And if that day of rain happens on, well, I tell you, so many times it would be, oh, great, the rainy day is on the day with the 3 girls with hair and makeup. Great.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Why couldn't it happen on day one? And then that's where you're okay. And sometimes there's been shoots where your last day is like, we just need to get the shots in. This is our only opportunity. And you're just kind of cranking them out. But that's where that teamwork comes in to just get it done. But there's a nice ebb and flow. And it's honestly, it's putting, as I say, even doing it, it's putting humanity in people and all that before.
Right.
Not before, but in that co-lives with actually executing. Because if you don't have a well-nourished and a happy team, it's going to show in the photography. And if you don't have somebody who is leading by example or leading with, leading by, I keep saying that because they stand true in everything. If you're not leading with empathy, compassion, and kindness, you're not going to produce great work. And you just, you have to keep all those in check all the time.
It makes people want to work for you. I mean, work better for you, I think,
Yeah.
I found that way people want to do things for you as opposed to just being an asshole and, cracking a whip on them. They don't really want to do their best. They just want to get it over with and move on.
People will go the extra mile. And there's always tension on set, doesn't matter. That's just a creative process and that's okay. But, it's just words to live by and just how things should be structured. And these should be fun. Shoots should be fun.
Right.
They should be just an opportunity to it's that creative mind.
Yeah, I agree. I had, I think a producer or somebody, maybe it was an agent. I don't know. Somebody ended up that I just barely knew, had never been on a set with me before and showed up. And after I talked to him like the next day and like, that's the chillest set I think I've ever been on. And I'm like, it's because we plan usually, if we have, if it's something like we were talking about with you, a bunch of shots, we plan them out. And then I'm not the kind of person who gets stressed out very easily. So if a problem does pop up, I go, all right, we got it. Bring it over here. We'll talk it out. We'll figure it out and we'll move on. And so I think that's why it is. But yeah, I think shoots should be fun. I think they just need to be something you enjoy.
It's hard. I think the one thing I always have to check for myself is, especially when you want something to be a certain way and it's not happening, how do you let that go? And because you know what it could be, and you're like, God damn it.
Yeah, that's when that happens. That's something I sit there and I just think about for the next days. Well, it could have done this. It could have done that if this hadn't happened.
That's why on these shoots, I haven't even talked about how extremely important the producer is. The producer is my right hand. And I'd be like, sometimes I'd be like, oh, well, that car is not going to be available. And I was like, and then instead of being like, what do you mean that car is not going to be? I was like, okay, we'll figure it out.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's okay, or that dog didn't make it, or this model's late. All right, well, let's not. It's okay. We'll do something.
Yeah, I think having a good producer is huge.
Oh,
They think of things that I don't half the time, and
oh,
then they're great just for keeping me. They're part of the reason I am chill is because I can just be like,
yeah,
okay, let me talk to the producer, and usually they'll be, oh, I know this person, or we can do this. Don't worry
yeah.
about it. We'll call this in.
Talk about somebody you need to trust, and the mutual trust is like they let them in, and that at the same time is just knowing and respecting everybody's roles on there is the other thing. So yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we've been doing this for a while now. This
Oh
is good.
yeah, I know. I was like, oh, there you.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying it. Tell me about the most interesting or strangest thing that's happened to you since you've been in this whole business.
The strangest or interesting thing. Oh God, you put me on the spot. I was like trying to. Well, I've just I think for interesting, I think it goes back to like when we were talking about when I got in this industry and I was like, I'm going to work for Donna Karan and I'm going to work with Bruce Weber. That truly was just something that blew my mind away of like, how the hell did that happen? And I mean, there are so many crazy and interesting stories on photo shoots of, the time when the RV, well, everybody thinks like everything's going wrong. The time the RV got stuck and we all had to get in the back of the RV to add the weight in just so that the up wheels could get on. And it was the most hysterical moment. Or, when I talked about the snow falling, it's just like, you never know some of the things that are going to happen. You hear about it, but like just some of the most random things will come out. And then you'd be like, what just happened here? Some interesting things is, for me, it's just been like, I have seen some amazing, interesting places. I feel very fortunate that the photo shoots are almost like vacations, even though
Right.
people sometimes think photo shoots they're not vacations, we're actually working. But interesting to be able to be on the inside and go to places and see things that you just typically wouldn't see as if you were a tourist in that town.
Right.
Like last year, one of the most amazing moments, we were in Wyoming and we were at the ranch and the cowboys came down and they said, hey, just so you guys know, we know you're working, but just so you know, we're going to be herding the horses and we're going to release them.
Oh, wow.
And we're all like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And there's a photo on my Instagram and we were working and we heard it. And all of a sudden we knew we were down there and these horses just came down. And it was just the most beautiful and most amazing moment that we were so fortunate to witness and capture on film.
Yeah.
That there's just I guess there's so many of these little things here and there, or the crazy things that happen on the shoots, that you're like, oh, well, yeah. So it's just like, I could go on probably now that you ask me interesting. There's a lot, but also there's more interesting for me is the difference between New York and living in Maine. That's been the most interesting change for me is going from New York City up to Portland, Maine. But Portland, Maine is, I don't know if you've ever been here, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And
I was there one time on a shoot. It's a beautiful place.
It's quite magical up here, and everything's just like in your backyard.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Greg, thank you so much for doing this. This was great, man. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful. Yeah, everybody watching, go ahead.
I hope you got what you wanted.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Plenty. It's amazing. So anybody watching, listening, if you enjoyed this, be sure and like it, thumbs up it, share it, subscribe to it, all that kind of stuff. And we'll keep putting them out. So see you guys soon.
It was a real pleasure, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.